rhubarb. So I'm going to pick a whole load of this rhubarb here. Okay, so we're going to get right down to the base and take off those rhubarb sticks like that. Okay, and I'm going to make some rhubarb crumble. So we'll take a whole load of that back with us. It's doing really well. Welcome back. We are going to make a strawberry and rhubarb crumble today. We have got a lot of rhubarb. This will be far more than you'll need for your crumbles if you're going to make rhubarb crumble. As we know, you can make rhubarb, you can make any crumble. So you can make apple, pear, a combination. Berries are lovely and very easy to use as well. I got this rhubarb from our kitchen garden. You can see it's not all sort of straight and deep red as most rhubarb is that you buy. We do have, as you know, lots of rhubarb forces, those clay domes that go on top of rhubarb when it starts to grow. I didn't actually even manage to get to put them on this year because obviously we've been away and they shot up. The reason you do that is that the clay domes have a hole in the top, and what happens is the rhubarb shoots up towards the light, and what that means is that the stems are less fibrous and they remain red, so it gives a sweeter, less fibrous, and it's just more appealing in colour. But these should be delicious. I'm going to make quite a lot, so I'm going to make another casserole dish of this as well. Bake it off. Let it cool down, and then I'm going to portion it into these to go to our paramedics at the stations that we supply food for. So I will give you relevant amounts to cook with your family in the recipe. If you want to divide the recipe in half so that your brother or sister can have a turn as well, you could do that, and then you could make your own crumbles if you wanted to. Basically, you just make sure that whatever dish you're using, you've got a layer of fruit and your crumble topping that you sprinkle over the top. You can always make some more if you need more, that sort of thing. It's not too crazy in terms of having to be an exact science. Okay, so we've got strawberries here, British strawberries. I'm just going to hull them, which means that you take out the stem. And I'm actually just going to keep mine whole, and the reason I'm going to do that is because we're going to slow cook these. Often with rhubarb, with apple crumble and rhubarb crumble, you will steam or put the fruit in a little bit of water with a bit of sugar and steam it just to soften it. I'm going to rather slow cook the rhubarb in the crumble for longer, because it can fall apart very quickly, rhubarb, when you pre-poach it. So, the strawberries will release a huge amount of liquid when you cook them as well, so that's why I'm keeping them whole. A little trick, especially with fruit that doesn't have a massive amount of pectin. So pectin is what makes jam set. And obviously strawberries do have some pectin, which is why they go quite well with, obviously, and also the sweetness goes well with the rhubarb. But if I was just going to do rhubarb, I would sprinkle, and I think I will do anyway with this, once I've got the sugar into the bowl with my strawberries and my rhubarb, I'm going to just sprinkle over 1 teaspoon of flour and just mix it in, and that helps to absorb the liquid so it's not too runny. All the lovely juices that come out of the fruit as it cooks. It's slightly more of a sauce. So we're going to pop those in. Right, so I am just popping those in there, and then I'm going to move on to my crumble, because when you crumble topping is really easy to make. You're basically using a rubbing in method to rub the butter into the flour. So I've got my flour here, I've just got plain flour. You can also use some wholemeal if you want to halve it and do that, but I'm adding some oats to it in a bit. And the rubbing in method is where you use your fingertips to rub the butter in to the flour, and what you want to end up with is sand-like appearance, which is basically every single bit of flour will have a coating of butter. And when we do that, because this is also the beginnings of things like short crust pastry, by doing that, you're shortening the flour. And what that means is that when you add anything to it, it won't, the gluten won't activate in the same way as when it isn't covered in a layer of fat. So nice short crust pastry is just basically butter and flour, and that makes it nice and short. Okay, so you can see I'm just lifting it up, rubbing it in. I'm only using my fingertips, and the reason I'm not sort of rubbing it in with my hands is that you don't want the butter to work into a sort of melted mess, because then it's not so nice. It's a bit more, it doesn't have a nice sort of crisp crunchiness to it. Okay, so you can see I'm just lightly doing that, and then you can give it a little shake around, and any lumps that come to the surface, you just grab hold of those, because those are bits of butter that haven't quite worked their way into all the flour. So you're working quite quickly. So I've just diced up the butter, popped it as cold butter, popped it into my flour and started working away. If you're going to be doing this on a hot day, obviously the butter's going to melt quickly, but not so much on a cold day. You're going to take a little bit longer to do this. It's nice and warm at the moment, so that is all worked through quite nicely and quickly. Right, so there we go. I'll just show you that. You can see it's sort of changed in colour because it's become like a pale yellow as the flour's been coated. Okay. There we go. So there you can see. Hopefully you can see. Right, and then to that I'm going to add my sugar. Now I'm using, this is actually light brown sugar because I couldn't get the, you can use brown sugar, that's also absolutely fine. And actually, what you could do, your crumble mix is basically ready at that point. I'm going to add some oats because I like to have that crunch, gives it a little bit more of a crunch and texture. So I'll put some oats in there. And what I like to do is I actually like to toast off my crumble before I put it on top of the fruit. And the reason I like to do that is because I find sometimes the flour can be a bit sort of, have that sort of uncooked taste. But it's still, lots of people prefer it, so you can play around with it. And if it's the first time you've made crumble, maybe just stick with keeping it at this point and just sprinkling it over the top of your fruit, as we will do in a bit. But I'm now just going to put this on a baking tray, pop it into the oven for about 5-10 minutes. I've got my oven on at 200 degrees. Just let it start colouring on the sides, and just getting a bit of colour to it. You'll smell it cooking. And then let it cool down, crumble it up, and then that will be my crumble ready to go. So I'll be back shortly. So just to show you, I'm just going to pop that now onto my baking tray. Spread it out slightly like that. Okay. And this is by no means compulsory. This is just how I like to do it. Okay. And then I'm just going to bake that in the oven. And bring it back when it's just coloured. Remember, always use your oven gloves to put anything in the oven and take it out, and always put it down somewhere straight from the oven. Obviously, years 4, if you haven't used the ovens much at all, especially the boys in the second rotation, so make sure you've got an adult with you at all times when you're taking anything out of the oven, and you can obviously opt for just putting it straight on. Right, so while I'm waiting for my crumble just to toast up in the oven, I'm going to prepare the rhubarb. And to do that, I've washed the rhubarb, but I'm just going to take the end bits using my claw. Okay, boys, obviously year 4, if you've got the cutlery knives, you're going to be using those as well, exactly the same method. So you're going to be using your claw. And we're going to be cutting the rhubarb at about that size. So it's probably about 1.5 centimetres to 2 centimetres. I'm just going to pop it in there. So you want to keep them all roughly the same size. Remember, boys, using the big knife, it's a rolling motion. So we're doing that. Okay. Right, and I'm going to pop it in, the rhubarb. Again, I'm just going to take the tips off like that. Oh, they look beautiful, all those colours. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing that. Then I'm going to add some sugar. So I'll put the volume of sugar in that is going to go in, and you're literally just going to stir it over so that it's all coated, and pour it evenly so you've got a distribution of the strawberries and rhubarb at the bottom of your dish. Right, so I just wanted to show you my crumble mixture that I put in the oven to toast up. Was in there for 8 minutes at 200 degrees. I've taken it out, let it cool a bit, and then just when it's still warm, I've let this get a little bit cool because I was busy doing something else, but you want to just break it up when it's still warm, like that. And all that does is it just gives it a nice, because the sugars in the flour have started caramelizing, I think it just gives it a nicer finish to your crumble, but it's totally up to you. That's just a personal choice. Right, so we've got a few oats in there. I am going to have to make some more crumble topping because the fruit that I've chopped up has ended up being 3 times what the recipe is going to be. But as I say, you can make as much or as little of this as you like. So, because I'm making lots of it, I will need to make another batch, at least one other batch of this crumble mix. Okay, so when you've broken it up nicely like that, you can, it's ready to spread on top of your fruit. So there we go. So that's my crumble. So I've got 100 grams there. I'm just going to sprinkle over the top, like that. Okay, now remember that things like rhubarb and certainly berries like blackberries, raspberries can be very acidic. So you do need that sugar to cut through the sharpness because otherwise it can be really tart. Okay, right, there we go. So I think we've got enough there. So, okay, and I'm just going to give that a little mix around. And as that cooks, the rhubarb will also release a lot of liquid. Okay. Okay. I'm now going to stick my crumble over the top. So we'll start off with this bowl here, this container here. And I'm just going to sprinkle it over the top, giving it a nice coating. You don't want to press your crumble down. If you press your crumble down, it'll get really compact and it won't have that nice light crunchiness. Okay, so I'm going to have to do another batch for the other side. So never mind, there we go. And I just want it to be coated over the top like that. Okay. And then I'm going to put that into an oven of 160 degrees, fan oven, for about 45 minutes until it's nice and bubbly. It's all bubbling, all the liquid up the sides, and nice and brown on the top. Okay, so I'm golden brown. So I'm going to stick that in and bring it out in a second. So here we have it. We've got our crumbles ready to go. I'm just going to let them cool a bit. I've started portioning this one into these boxes because it came out earlier. That one's just come out of the oven, so I'm going to let it cool down before I do. So give this a go at home. If you want to try a different filling, just use what you've got, and you can play around with it as well. If you want to put some cinnamon in your topping, if you want to put some almonds or something as well, some flaked almonds, it's totally up to you.